Rachel Reeves. We don't know what's going to be in her spring statement. I'm not going to second guess it, but we've had plenty of prior warning, and that is departments of government are expected to impose 10 billions worth of cuts, and that includes 2 billion of cuts in the civil service itself. So very Trumpian, very musky in that particular respect. She talks about red tape. And when I hear red tape, I go, yeah, sure. I know all about NHS England. We're not going to, say, well, we know that's not to do with doctors. We know that's not to do with nurses and physiotherapists. Hello, Moshe. Hope you can come in and comment on my Israel stuff. Thanks you ever so much. So we know that's not to do with the service. But when I hear governments talk about cutting red tape, I think about planning. And I not only think about building regulations, I think about, building regulations at the level of Grenfell Tower. So I don't go, whoopee, isn't it great that the government is getting rid of civil service? Because some civil servants check, are the building regulations being enforced? Or is big business allowed to do what the hell it wants when it comes to our lives, when it comes to transport, when it comes to aircraft, when it comes to the buildings, with the water that we drink? Is it safe? We need regulation when it comes to the alcohol that I occasionally imbibe. I want to know it's safe, relatively speaking. So what about the rest of the cuts? These are going to be cuts, we're told, on people on disability. This is going to be cuts, from what I hear, possibly against old farts like me, right? Old age pensioners, the triple lock, right? This is going to hit real people. But they're saying the pain is going to be worth it. We on the left, it's quite interesting. My position is quite clear. We should be against these cuts. We should be actually for a higher basic pension. We should be for higher benefits. We should be for universal benefits. We all know the figures. Once you start introducing means tests, load of people don't want to fill in the forms. Lots of people can't fill in the forms, right? And the fact of the matter is, then you have to have precisely red tape to check the forms. It's not just a question of AI. You need people to check these things. Either way, on the left, it's interesting that some comrades, quite rightly in my opinion, are saying no to the warfare budget, because Starmer is talking about upping the budget for so-called defense. Remember, from 2% to 2.5 to 3%. That's a real steep increase. He's talking about British soldiers being over there in Ukraine. He's talking about air cover. He's talking about Trident and how many Russian cities just one of these submarines can eviscerate. So he's talking big and tough. So some comments, quite rightly, are raising the question of the welfare budget as opposed to the warfare budget. I'm quite prepared to go along with that. On the other hand, notice the significant silence with some who don't raise the warfare budget. So note socialist resistance, note Alliance for Workers' Liberty, and indeed look at it's the editorial position, but note is it Eric Lee, who's an American Zionist, who actually says, I support or I don't oppose the increase in the warfare budget. And he's quite right, because if you want to back Ukraine, you have to have what is called a defense industry, i.e. an arms industry. And either you buy from America or you cooperate in Europe or you have your own. Either way, you cannot just produce an aircraft that's specially for Ukraine. It doesn't work like that. And that goes for artillery shells. It goes for everything. So I point out the logic of the social imperialists. It's quite logical. for these people to actually end up supporting the war budget. It was the logic that took right-wing social democrats in Germany to joining the government, to supporting the war efforts of their own imperialist side. And I finish with this. The problem precisely with the comrades that raised the question of not the warfare budget, but the welfare budget, is they say what we should do is tax the rich. Great slogan, but the problem is you tax the rich and the rich take their money out of the country. Mark Holland did a very good talk at the previous Communist University on this one, and he compared the rich to the goose that lays the golden egg. If you want to keep taxing the rich, you've got to maintain them. You've got to give them chicken feed, haven't you? You've got to keep giving them profits. You've got to give them the ability to exploit the working class ultimately. And if the British, finance industry doesn't exploit workers directly in Britain, it does it internationally. And the point is here that the most fluid form of capital is precisely the City of London. And so if you want to tax the City of London, comrades on the left, which is what they say, it will take flight. It will leave you. The goose that, lays the golden egg will take flight. Now that's different from expropriating. But are you going to expropriate on the basis of just Britain alone? How long could Britain feed itself in isolation? I mean, there was a program on the radio the other day. Is it weeks or is it less than weeks? I think it's less. Either way, again, having talked about the Middle East and the Arab Revolution, if we're going to have a viable route to socialism, we've got to think on a regional basis. Of course, we need a global strategy, but we also need a European strategy. So the comrade in Spew who's talking about an independent socialist Scotland and an independent, I don't know, is it a socialist republic of England and Wales? I'm sorry, this is hopeless, comrade. We would be starving, and it wouldn't provide a model that all the, everyone around the world is looking at to emulate. It precisely becomes what the Bolsheviks in their early years, comrades like Zinoviev, were honest enough to admit, we are starving. We need you to come to our rescue. We are no advert. And that's what our fate would be unless we unite with the German working class, the French working class, the Italian working class, the Dutch, the Belgian, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Greek, the Turkish working class. We need that continental perspective. So no to little England or little Israeli socialist projects. These are delusional. And I'll finish with that.